Hi, welcome to Behind the Camera Podcast, a podcast for teens where we talk about everything but photography, specifically issues that impact the teens in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm your host, Annie.
And I'm your co-host, Anissa Reese.
Today we have Nat Lucio in the studio. Say hi, Nat.
Hi.
She's here as our very special guest. Today we are talking about mean girls and how to handle them. So it's a very relevant topic, I think, to a lot of people, no matter what age you're at, because I feel like once a mean girl, always a mean girl, like high school, elementary, like adulthood, it doesn't matter. They're just everywhere. So Natalie was a senior rep for year 4. And in case you don't know about my rep program, we have a program where high school seniors are a part of this group for my studio, Pixel Annie Studio, and I kind of follow them throughout their senior year and take their pictures. So from the time that their junior year ends, and we do like the whole summer, and then football season, and then of course like the holidays, and we document every part of their senior year. And so Natalie was a part of the year 4 group.
Yep.
So Natalie, welcome to the studio and welcome to the
you.
podcast. Okay, so we're gonna start off with describing a mean girl. So what's the difference between someone who is rude versus someone who's actually a mean girl? Like how would you, I guess, describe each one?
Okay. My description is a mean girl is they're going to tell you something about yourself that you can't fix in that moment. Why is your hair like that? Like, why is the color like that? And then just being rude is just, you're unaware. Like, you're just unaware of what you're saying, and you don't realize that what you're saying is impacting them.
So like a mean girl is intentional about it.
Yes, it's very intentional. Like, she wants to wait until there's people around and just jab you in the heart and you're just crying in the corner. But there's some people that are just unaware. They're just ditzy and they're like, oh, I didn't mean to say it. I didn't mean it to come out that way.
Yeah, like they have no self-awareness.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But
Okay.
And then I think, okay, Nat, what do you think about it?
That was a good description.
Yeah.
But I think like a main thing is like being consistent with it. Like
yes.
the bullying I've gone through or mean girls with that, it's always been consistent for like more than like 2 days, a week, like even more, like a month.
Yeah.
You can't say it's a slip up.
No, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought, you can't just say like, oh, I was having a bad day. And I'm glad you brought that up, Nat, because that is, okay, the difference between being rude / kind of being a mean girl and then bullying. Like, bullying is that like intentional, relentless, consistent, like imbalance of power with someone that's constantly just trying to make you feel a certain type of way. And so for you think it was more like on that end of the spectrum, like it was more like bullying, intentional bullying.
Also, it like with it being consistent, it's that they would put up a face with everyone else, like they would hide it. And when it came to like them just being with me, it would change completely. So
And that's so weird because like I dealt with a mean girl in my late adulthood, and it was the same thing. And it was so frustrating because like for me it was a certain dynamic, but when they were in front of other people it was like no one would ever know. And I think that's the most frustrating part, is that they kind of put on this like different face with other people. So do you want to tell us, like, kind of describe your experience with mean girls?
I feel like it's always been like everywhere, like being in high school, especially with like your classmates or like in the sport you're doing. Like for me it was cheer, and cheer, like no matter what you're gonna have a mean girl in cheer, because that's just how it is. But it was mainly there too. And like it's just like how my coach would say, like when we're on the mat together, we put on a face like we're gonna get our job done, like everything's gonna go smoothly through the routine, and then after you can hate each other. That's what she would say, and it was like funny at the time. But yes, I always thought of that, like just put it on the face and go through it, push through.
So you were able to kind of like compartmentalize,
Yeah.
like, okay, now it's time to work and put everything aside. But then kind of when that's over,
Yeah.
it's all there.
But then it kind of hurts more.
Yeah,
In
it
my
does.
opinion, because in those, well, practice is probably like 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
But in those hours, you're like, okay, like I could feel this. I could feel us working out, and then practice is over. You know, it's the real world, and you kind of just get hurt again. And I feel like it would hurt a lot more.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like burning the wound all over again, in my opinion. I feel like that
Yeah.
would kind of
It was kind of the opposite. Like, so like we would do like a full out or something like that, and during the full out everything was fine. But when it came to like practicing or like the like dead time, I guess, between, that's when it was like the worst. And then like throughout school it would just be normal because I would rarely see them.
Yeah.
But like it was like that's why it came to that point where I wanted to like quit, because every time I would go to practice it would
It's
happen.
a time where you're forced to be in the same.
Yeah.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I don't know. I was a cheer mom for many, many years, right? And I feel like sometimes it's even the moms that are kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, we went through our own experience, you know, when she was a cheerleader, many different situations.
High school, college.
Yeah, it's just like, it's never ending, okay? Like, I'm waiting for her to tell me that there's a mean girl at her job.
Well, actually.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Jobs
it.
especially too.
Oh, yeah.
They're just everywhere.
Yeah.
You
But
can't avoid them.
honestly, in my opinion, like now being in college, freshman year, there's like no one. Like there's no bullies, nothing, because nobody cares. Nobody really cares about what you do, what you look like, what you're wearing, or anything like that. Because no one knows you. And even if your high school people go, they don't talk to you. They just walk away, or they'll say hi and that's it.
Yeah, because everyone's just kind of doing their own thing in college. Like, everyone just needs to pass the class and, like, get their degree and move on with their life. Like, it's not really, I don't know what it is about high school. I don't know if it's because everyone has kind of grown together and, like, you have that, like, you have more power, I guess, with the friends. But, like, when you're in college, it's a little bit different, too. And then also, you know, people just mature and
Yeah.
you just kind of stop being the way you are. But some people, I think it's deeper, and then they just kind of continue that way of treating other people throughout their whole life.
Yeah, that was one of the things I felt like once I got to college. I was like, oh, okay, like this probably might happen again. Like it's fine, whatever, you've been through it. But I was very surprised that nobody cared, and I was like, what the?
Because you choose the people you hang around too. Like you'll have a couple classes with like 2-3 people that are consistent, but at the end of the day, you're gonna choose who you study with. You're gonna choose who you eat lunch with, or go have a little snack with. So it's a very different environment compared to high school. You're forced to be in an organization, in a class, and in the same lunch table, and that's where they start to target you because they see you every day. They see you in your high and your low, so they find something to make fun of, in my opinion. But
So how did it start off for you? Was it like, because I know you were in cheer all 4 years, right? What did it happen all 4 years, or like what's your recollection about it?
The whole like Mean Girls, it's probably started like in the beginning in freshman year, and it's been the same people.
Wow.
And then, but especially with freshman year, it was mainly upperclassmen, but you can see like the people in my grade, they would also, and then they just tend to stay there till my senior year. So that's how it was. But going through like Mean Girls or like bullying or mean people in general, I've gone through it since like middle school, because it's always like it started with the opposite gender, with boys, and they would be like so rude. And even till high school I thought it would change, but no, they were still there. So that's why it was like hard to deal with, because I had the cheer thing and them also. So, and it was always like about my looks or something like that, and I was like, bro, like I don't care anymore. Like I stopped caring probably like my freshman year. So that's why it was just like annoying, I guess.
Do you feel it affected you in any sort of way? Either
feel
good
like-
or bad?
I feel like it definitely made me have tougher skin. And in a bad way, just that like it destroyed my mental health very early on in my life.
it makes you question.
Yeah.
Like how early would you say?
Probably freshman year also, because that was like you're in a different like place, you're with new people, but also the same from middle school, and you're just seeing like their true colors, I guess, because you're closer with them for
Yeah.
a longer time, more mature when they're just the same as they were. But
So I know that like we've gotten so comfortable with treating each other really bad recently. Like in the past few years, I've noticed that like social media or just over, you know, text message, we've gotten really comfortable with openly being mean to people. And I always wonder like why. Like is it because of now social media it's easier to do it over the text, over the screen versus in your face? Or like what is it? Is everybody just miserable? Like I don't know. Like what do you think makes a mean girl a mean girl? Like what do you think that's about?
I think it's someone who like sees that you have something that they don't, and they don't like that, so it's their
Jealousy.
only way of coping and making themselves feel better. That's a main reason that I think.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that too.
I feel like it's because they know they can get away with it.
Yeah,
They could
and that's
easily
another
just say,
thing, yeah.
"Oh, it was a joke. Maybe you shouldn't take it so serious."
Yeah, they start
Okay,
gaslighting
cool, yeah.
you.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
ga-
no.
yeah, the gaslighting's serious.
No, yeah, I agree with that too. And I think also like
But that was the alarm.
stop laughing because it's hard for me to edit when you're laughing. Okay, I think also like it's like a self-esteem issue. So, you know, if you're not feeling good about yourself and it makes you feel good to have power over someone else, to know that you have this influence over someone, that you can make them feel a certain type of way, like it gives them this like power. And I think that they kind of feed off of that, and they're kind of compensating for what they're not getting in their life. Like they have something missing, and this is, like you said, their way of coping.
Yeah, it had actually happened one time when I was in practice, or not in practice, I was changing in the locker room, and one of them had spoken to me, and they were like, "Oh, like you got a car? Like why'd you get this car?" And it was the Bronco that I had, and I was like, "Well, my parents just they like to like buy nice things for me." And especially with my dad, because he's older and he always loves to spend his money on us, because
How nice.
yeah, he rarely buys things for him because he feels more like love with us.
Yeah.
Dad of the
seeing
year.
the look on our face when
Yeah.
we get things. Yeah.
It makes them happy to see you happy. So the car bothered them.
Yes, and I was like, oh, like my parents just bought it for me, and I was a sophomore, and it was like a month before my birthday, so it was like out of the blue.
Yeah.
And they were just like questioned by it, and I was like, oh, like I don't know, ask my mom.
Yeah, talk to them.
Like
Here's
I
their
don't
number.
know. But I thought that was so weird, because I was like, what?
Like why does that bother you?
Because they were doing perfectly fine also. Like I didn't see anything about it, so I was like, okay. Oh.
It sounds like jealousy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that when people are jealous of other people, they're going to go attack the thing they're jealous of. Like, why are you wearing your makeup like that?
Yeah, and then they make it think like it's weird when it's not. It's
Yeah.
just normal.
They want to make you feel bad
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted you to go to your
And I
dad, like,
didn't.
Dad,
I loved
return
my
it.
car.
Yeah, like they wanted to have an impact where it's like, oh, they don't like my car, guys. Like,
Yeah.
here you go, Dad.
And
Here
I
you go,
feel like
Mom.
that's another
Like-
reason why they just continued like with the bullying, because it didn't really phase me. I was just like questioned, but I didn't really care about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So do you think if you would have fought fire with fire, it would have been even worse, or they kind of would have just been like, whoa, like I didn't know she had
I
that
feel
in
like they
her.
would have done both. Like
Okay.
they would have been like, "What the heck? That's
Yeah.
not like nah."
But I'm not gonna let her win.
Yeah.
like
But,
that type
no,
of-
I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of like the self-esteem issues, I think that also everybody, like I think we all have a mean girl inside of us, but we make a choice to not be the mean girl. You know what I mean? Like we can all be mean girls. We can all wake up and choose to just be terrible to everybody. But like we kind of learn how to handle our stress, our anger, our sadness in an appropriate way where it doesn't negatively impact other people. And I think that maybe they might not have that. They might not have either the knowledge, or they might not have like you said, well, it's not really that they don't have the awareness
I feel like everyone's bound to feel it at one point, and that's when you've been bullied. You decide, you know what, I don't want to make someone feel that way. And I feel like they probably just haven't felt that emotion to where it hit them in the part that they don't want someone else to feel.
But like, what would make someone come to that point? What would make a bully or a mean girl come to the point where they're like, I don't want to treat people like this anymore? Like, what do you think it would take?
Probably a lot.
Yeah, like when it gets to like serious, like the whole like suicide or something like that.
Yeah, or they could just reevaluate themselves, and it's like, once you look back and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't have a lot of people that like me.
Yeah.
And then they start to question everything, and it's like, oh wow, like I don't have friends. And it's like, well, you kind of did that yourself.
Like, yeah, let me take a look at what I'm doing.
Yes, maybe that's like the one thing.
Yeah, or like just kind of like, why do I treat people this way? Like, what is this about? Because I know when I'm rude to someone, right away I'm like, oh my god, like that sounded so rude. You know? And sometimes I'll catch it, I'll be like, I'm sorry, that sounded rude. Like, I didn't mean for it to come out that way. But you know, it's just kind of like, we're human beings, but I know I catch it right away. And I know, like, in my life, like in the past, I've gone through parts of my life where I was going through like a lot of suffering or like a lot of pain. And I know for me, it came out in the way I treated other people, and I was kind of mean, but not intentionally where like, oh, I'm going to make her life miserable. It was just kind of like, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
So
like we knew you were going through it.
Yeah. Like, I'm miserable, so I really don't care if you're feeling miserable right now too. Like that kind of, but it wasn't really like intentional, like, I want you to feel bad. I didn't want anybody else to feel bad, but like I was kind of just going through it. Yeah. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but
but when it comes to the point where you know that like a mean girl has their life together, her parents spoil her, like she has friends, and she's just being mean just to be mean, it's like, you know, it's not personal. Like, you're not going through something that you could back it up, like, oh, sorry guys, like I went through a really hard thing in my life, and that was why I was mean. It's just you were mean. So that's why, like, the fact that you could acknowledge that you're like, okay, I did go through something, I did have those moments, and I did have slip-ups. That's the difference between, you know, having the hard days and just being a straight-out mean girl.
Yeah. That was another reason why I never was, like, mean back, I guess. Because I'm the type of person to, like, wonder that, like, oh, what if something's going on at home and that's why they're like this, so I can't really, like, I shouldn't do anything mean back.
I can't judge.
And I've always been like that in general with every person that I meet, because I'm always scared, because there's always people who are on their, like, last straw, because I know I get like that too. But it takes a lot for me to get on my last straw.
Work. No, Anissa with her mental breakdowns, she has them very frequently.
Yeah, just very frequently. If y'all see me in public, just know it might be my last straw.
I used to have those a lot in high school.
No, yeah.
But it wouldn't happen in public. It would happen at home.
It's real stuff. You know, it's like we really do get to that point, and I'm so glad that you're openly talking about it, because I feel like people don't want to say that. Like, they don't want to say, like, okay, I'm at the end of my rope. Like, because for whatever reason they might think like they sound weak, or they sound, you know, dumb or whatever, but it's really reality. And I think a lot of people, I think most of us at one point have been at that like ledge where you're just like, oh my god, if one more thing happens, like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to take it anymore. So do you mind talking about like maybe one of those dark times or something where you just, like, how did you get out of it? How did you get into it, and how did you get out of it?
I feel like one of the worst ones was when I was quitting cheer my senior year, and that was just overall so much, because, like, yes, it's my senior year and I had co-op, so I didn't really go to school. I only went to school for practice and then a couple classes, and then I would leave by like 12. So I was really like in a happy place, I guess, but going to like the practices and everything, and getting told so many things, like, oh, Nat, you look tired, oh, Nat, you don't look good today, like, and stuff like that, and it would just like bring me down so much, and it was like so, like, what's the word, like, draining. I was like, oh my god, I don't want to be here, and it's my senior year, I wanted to have so much fun, and it was just like every time I would go, it was like a drag, and I was like, okay, like, just push through it. And then it came to the point where every time I would push through it, I would come home and I would cry. Like,
it would affect you more.
Yeah, I would tell my parents every single time. Like, I would tell them what happened, and it just got so bad to where one time, like, my what's it called, coach like had been hearing like what they would say, and I guess she not really believed it, but like had to like at least like say something about it. And I think it's also because she was already like mad in general, like from other things. So she yelled at me, and I was like, what the? And it took me back really bad because it just made me feel like, oh my God, she's believing everything that they say. And that was like the worst. And then in the end, like she ended up, like I know how she was like in general, so I knew she didn't mean it, and that she was just having a bad day, just like how we were talking about. So I was like, okay, it's fine, like it's my coach, it's an adult, I look up to them, so it's not going to change the way I see them. And in that was just honestly a good push in a good way for me, because that's what made me really like, okay, like I talked to her about it, and she was like I want you to know that, like what I said I didn't mean. I was like, oh, I know, like I like 100% I understand, but it's the push that I needed. And I thank her so much for that, because every now that I see her, I always say hi to her, and she's always like, oh my God. And my feelings never changed about that, but I just really needed that. So when I finally quit, all of those people who were telling me those things, they were like, wow, Nat, you look so happy. Like they would say that to me at school, and I was like, I'm really happy.
They wanted to push you to that point.
I was like, I'm really happy actually. And I had so much fun like the rest of my senior year besides that. But that was really bad.
Well, I knew it had to be something bad because, okay, so, you know, you just don't quit midway through your senior year when you've been a varsity cheerleader it's basically your whole entire life. You all accomplish a lot, and so when you're like, yeah, I just quit cheer, I was like, there's more to the story because we're like, what happened? And then I was like, well, maybe she just does want to enjoy her senior year, because it is very demanding to be part of an organization, whatever it is, right? And so I'm like, oh, maybe she just doesn't want to, but then as time passed, I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, okay, I feel like something else is going on. And that's when I asked you, like, how is it? Is the rep team good? Like, what's going on? Because I just didn't want the dynamics to change within the reps. And if it was going to change, that's fine. But I wanted to, like, address it because I don't want any of that stuff to be happening, like, within the rep program. I want it to be like a place where you can come and be yourself and no one's going to tell you anything about it.
Place.
Like, like a safe place. Like, we're just going to enjoy senior year and be good. So I was kind of worried about you and about like just everything in general. Like, I don't want this to be a stressful place for you too.
I would have been way more concerned if she decided to not do this as well.
Like the rep program.
Yes, because then it would have been like, oh my gosh, now call us right now. We're going to go see you. Like, what's going on?
What is happening?
Yeah, because that's not like, we want a good environment, like she said. Like, this is a place where you come and you get your memories taken, and you don't want a memory where it's like, oh, like that day I got told a bunch of stuff, and it's like, that's not what we want. We want something good. So I mean, I'm glad that it was just an outside thing.
But then another thing is like, when, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what keeps you from, I guess, I don't want to say snitching, but like, at what point do you come and tell other people, like, hey, these specific people are pushing me to this limit, or they're doing this to me? Like, you talked about how you kind of just rolled with it and ignored it, and you told your parents, but it doesn't sound like it was ever anything where you're like, okay, I'm going to take it to another level where I'm going to out them or anything like that, because I never knew who it was that was doing this to you. So you kept it pretty,
under the wraps.
Yes, exactly. So
it's because I don't like being a bad person. I don't like, even though they may deserve it or not in the moment, I don't feel that I should. My parents are like the one person that I tell everything to, so because I know that they'll always have my back and they'll always believe me. So that's why I would just let them know every time something happened. I would let them know. They're like my type of authority figure, because I knew that if I went to like my coach or something like that, she would have just said to deal with it, like, because I just needed to get through it for cheer. That's it. And I would have done that.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really feel the need to, because she didn't need to know that. There was times where she did end up seeing it because of like arguments that would happen in the locker room or stuff like that. But she would address it right away and then stop it, and it wouldn't happen until it did again.
But she can't be around 24/7 to like watch you out.
Especially in the locker room.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen.
But that's honestly so healthy of you to know when to take yourself out of that situation.
I know.
Like, honestly, I dealt with it, well, like you heard, my whole cheer career. And I just love the sport so much where I was like, you know what, like, I just have to deal with it, like, yada, yada. But it did alter the way I, like how you said, you saw yourself and the way you perceive people. And I just applaud you for that, because I don't think I would have been able to say, you know what, like, middle of the year, I can't do it no more. Even though I should have, I would have been maybe a lot different.
She would have been a lot healthier.
Thank you.
Yeah, the trauma. But no, that was actually really
to be able to give that up, and just because you're like, you know what, it's better for me to just walk away with it. And then you were a lot happier after that, because you're like, oh, like, now I can really like enjoy my senior year and do all the things. And
yeah, in the beginning it really sucked though, because I never got to do my last year with my sister. And I feel like every day I just think about that, like, they just took that away from me.
Do you feel regretful about that part?
Not about me quitting, but I do feel sad that I never got to do that with her, because I love her so much, and it was so happy to like be on the same team as her. And that first year that we performed together, it was amazing. I loved it so much. And then getting not to do it for the second time was sad. But I feel like that's why I was able to overcome that, because I already did it with her before. But I was really sad with that.
And it would have been nice to just leave it on a good note, because who knows if it would have gone to a certain extent to where you're just not happy at all. Like, you don't want to compete, you don't want to do anything. So I feel like everything happens the way it should. So you felt that way, you felt the need to get out, you got to enjoy watching her perform, and you got to see her in, you know, in her action or in her element. So I feel like it is a little sour, like, not being able to experience it for the second time, but I'm glad that you got that first time with her, and you could cherish that forever.
And I think also, like, supporting her as a spectator maybe was a different angle for you too, and you're like, oh, like, now I can be here without the anxiety of like
especially this year. I go to every single game for her. I go to all the pep rallies, because I know that sometimes my parents can't make it, so I'm always there. If she's looking in the stands, if she's looking for my mom and dad, I'm there instead.
How sweet.
That's good.
But I remember talking to her about it before I quit, and she was like, Nat, I see you every day and how you cry and blah blah. Like, she saw how bad I felt, and she didn't want to make me feel like that. So when she told me, she was like, just do it, it's okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. But my parents, right off the bat, it happened actually at a football game. When it happened, like, the whole, like, everything came crashing down.
Like the breakdown, you had a little breakdown?
Because everyone was telling me, like, smile, Nat, and I'm like, I am smiling, like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what the heck? And I only told my parents and then my group stunt, which had my sister in it. And they were so surprised when I told them, and I was like, this is too much for me. And halftime I came crying to my parents on the stands, and they saw that I was crying, and I've never cried at a game or anything like that, so they were like, okay, they understood that it was serious. And they were like, it's okay, whatever you do, we're gonna be behind you. And my teammates, actually, the group stunt, they were actually really behind me too. They were also like, it's okay, Nat, like, you're gonna be so much better, it's okay. And my sister was surprised too, all of them. And then the actual day when it came, it was surprising for everyone, because they were like, because we had practice, because
nobody expected for you to do that, because I'm telling you, it's very like odd for someone to do that midway when you've been in it for so long.
Sure, since 4 years old.
I mean, that's a super difficult decision to walk away from it, but it's like Anissa said, it's extremely healthy of you to do that, because there's so many other ways that you could deal with the situation. And like, I know that some people kind of like pass on the bullying because they're being bullied, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take control over someone else so that I can gain some of my control back. You know, and I know that happens a lot. Or, you know what, I'm going to go hurt someone because I've been hurt, and so I want to hurt other people. And like, how many times do we see like these people who pick up a gun and go shoot people, or you know, things like that, because they have this like idea that like, okay, I need to go hurt others because people hurt me. And so what, I know you said your parents were supportive, but like, what was kind of like their advice to you throughout the whole 4 years?
They just, they would always say like, Nat, you're tough. Like, I am very tough. Like, people could tell me one thing, and I'm like, okay, it goes out my ear. Just like how when my parents
That's
tell
very
me.
good. Like, I wish I was like that, because that's
Clean
hard
your
for
room.
me.
Yeah, it just goes out. That's how it always was whenever I'd get, like, stuff like that. Like, oh, you don't look good. Oh, stuff about my features and everything. And I was just like, okay, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I like the way I look, and that's it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. They're just, like, advice. They've always given good advice since I was little. So they were just always there.
Supporting you.
They didn't really, they were surprised, but they were also like, they could see that the toll that was taking on my mental health. So my parents are really big on mental health, like really, really.
Good.
So like every now and then they check in on Gabby too with
Yeah.
about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they just saw over the years how bad it was getting, and they thought it would get better, but it just didn't. So in the end, that's why they were like very they're like accepted with that. And they were like, yeah, if just know that if you regret it, like it was your decision. And I was like, yep, I know, I'm good.
You're like, I'm fine with that. I know. I remember one time your dad made a comment. He's like, Nat views life through rose-colored glasses. Like, like she could go through the worst thing, and yeah, she's still gonna kind of like treat you good, and she's still gonna be nice to you. And that's honestly one of the things that I would say, like, if you are dealing with mean girls, if you are being bullied, like the best thing you can do is to continue to be yourself and continue to like not allow that to change the way that you treat others, and just be as kind as you can, including them, you know, because I think that's going to be a true testament of who you really are. It's like through pressures, through all these hard things that you're going through, how you treat others, you know. And I think you've held up really well, because I think anybody else in that situation, like we said earlier, everybody copes differently. And for some people it ends tragically, where they end up taking their life because they just feel like there's no way out, or their pain is just too much and they can't deal with it. You know, it could go to like a really dark place really fast.
Yes, this is why I wanted to do this, because I was like, I want people to know that they can just not go to their parents. They can go to friends that are actually their friends, not fake friends. They can go to teachers, they can go to coaches, like people that they really trust, family, friends, and they're always going to be there to help them, because if they really love them, the person that they're going to will always be behind their back. And yes, my dad said that about me, I know. they always tell me that, because they always say that I'm like a pure child of God and stuff like that, and that I never see the bad in people. Like I always see good. Like, they could do me wrong.
Do you think that made you a target?
Yes, like very, like looking kind of vulnerable and like easy, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like like Anissa said, it's like an opportunity. Like, oh, Nat's not going to say anything, so I'm just going to be mean to her, even if like it's intentional or not. Like, I feel like, you know, just nature, like just nature, you see it in animals. The tough animals are going to go eat the more vulnerable animals. And you know, I feel like it's like that too with humans. And so we kind of have to check ourselves and be like, okay, I know I have a strong personality, so I'm going to make sure that I don't overpower everybody else with, you know, and I'm going to try to be as nice as I can. And it's like a daily decision to be nice to people and like to be kind to people. And I honestly think that kindness is contagious.
Yes,
because like when someone's nice to you, it kind of changes your mood, and then you're like, I want to be nice to other people. You know, like I want them to feel what I just felt. And I think we need to do more of that.
Yes, 100%.
Instead of like the other way where we're just kind of all being mean to each other. And, but you know, I think that cheer overall is just a tough sport.
Yes,
and
it is.
It's a tough sport, and there's a lot of different personalities,
mentally and physically. One piece of advice that my mom would tell me every day, though, was kill them with kindness.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
She always says that.
Yeah.
And she always says that, like, me and my mom completely believe in karma and everything like that.
Yeah.
So she's like, no matter what happens, kill them with kindness. They'll get what they deserve at the end. That's it. And I was like, okay. So that's why I feel that I always see kindness in people, and that I never judge them on how they are.
Yeah. And then, you know, another thing is, like you talked about, it's good to kind of surround yourself with positive people, right? And I think that's one of the more helpful things is if you're going through something if you're in a situation, like let's say at cheer or at school, find other places where you're going to have these positive people where you can kind of find refuge, and like know that when you see that person, you're going to kind of get like a breath of fresh air, because they're going to give you some positive feedback, or you're going to be able to talk to them and kind of like unload, like the way you did with your parents, you know. And that's also very helpful for like people that are going through this right now,
Yes.
like girls that are going through this right now, because it's really easy to feel alone in the situation and feel like everyone's against me, the whole
Yes.
world's against me, you know. And so yeah, I think that's another good one too.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was there ever a moment where someone was saying, hey, I noticed so and so is doing this to you, are you okay? Or I've noticed that you're down, is it because of this or that? Or was it just everyone was oblivious to everything going on?
Yeah,
like, were they aware?
This may sound sad, but no one had ever told me that. Like, especially on the cheer team, they knew, but they wouldn't say anything. And I understood that because they don't want trouble. They don't want
they don't want to upset,
happen to them.
They don't want to upset the bully.
That's a big problem,
Yes,
though.
I
That's a
know.
huge and that's a problem just in our society too, because like, for example, this, you know, recent shooting in Uvalde, like the kid was openly posting stuff on social media all the time, and everyone just kind of, you know, decided that it wasn't their problem. And this could have been avoided way before it even happened. And like, it's a huge problem for people just to say like, oh, I'm just gonna stay out of it.
Yeah, like it's not my thing.
I feel like people see that like in movies and stuff, that actual people don't do anything, and it's just like that in the real world. Like, it's
So it's okay if you know someone who's being bullied. It's
Yes.
okay to be like, hey, are you okay?
Yes.
Like, can I do something to help you, or try to guide them in the right direction? And also, it's okay for you to go up to the mean girl and be like, what's your problem? Like, you know, help stand up for other people too, if you can.
Yes, because if it happens to that person and you, after you stand up for them, that's when you go to a parent, a teacher, because that's when they can actually do something about it. When it's multiple people that it's getting done to.
But I also, you know, just understanding that everybody has the basic right of being treated good, you know, being treated with respect at the very least. Not even good, like you don't have to be treated good, but you have to be treated with respect, where people aren't going to degrade you or humiliate you or find joy in your sadness, like, you know. And I think that maybe when you've been bullied for a long period of time, it does start to affect your self-esteem, and maybe you do start to think like, you know, I'm not worth it, or, you know, I'm, you know, not capable of being loved by people. You start kind of telling yourself these things, and it does change your, you know, inner belief system, where you start seeing the world differently.
There was a time like that for me, but then I was like, nope, snap back. Like, you're better. And also back to the question real quick. I did have my sister on the team as well.
Oh,
so
yeah,
many people would probably think like, oh, like, because my sister is she's something else.
She's a little hot fire.
She seems more feisty.
Yes, you can't tell that girl anything, because she'll come back biting. Like, oh, it's crazy. But she knew what was happening, but she also, like, whenever she would hear something, because she would rarely, like, be around me when it happened, but when she did, she would easily bite back. Like, she would be like, why are you saying that?
As she should.
Like, she would question it. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't.
Maybe that's why they waited till Gabby wasn't around.
Yes, very much. Like, no, the only person that can bully me is my sister. Like, that's how she is. She's very strong as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes if you have a strong personality, you kind of like unwillingly like kind of just overpower other people,
I feel like
but you have to be aware of it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so Anissa, you kind of went through your own experience in high school, but mostly the big one was in college, right?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that? You don't have to go into detail. Just kind of give us maybe like a summary of like what you learned or what you got out of it, because obviously you overcame it, right? You're in a different place in your life right now. So what do you think you got out of it?
I feel like now I choose who I want around in my life. And like Nat, like towards like in college, I quit cheer one day to the next. I didn't show up to practice. I hate to say it, but I was cheer captain at the time. Well, I was co-captain, or I was head captain, and I didn't show up. And it was just for my mental health. From one day to the next, I just couldn't deal with it. I was, you know, getting a lot of stuff in my ear, and it wasn't what I wanted to deal with anymore. So going through that, I think that was my wake-up call to where it's like, I don't need to let this ruin my life. And yes, it's like I dealt with it my whole life doing cheer, you know, you're in that environment, and I feel like we kind of get numb to it at one point. We kind of let that happen, especially like my mom hearing it. I would always tell her stuff that I was going through, and it's like, oh, well, they're still my friends, like they love me, like it's whatever, it's tough love. But now that I went through that, I kind of see that it did build me up, and it kind of gave me the characteristics to where I'm not gonna let someone walk all over me. I'm not gonna be mean about it, but I'm not gonna let you tell me about this without me saying, hey, that's not right. Like you don't talk to someone that way.
It's like I said earlier, like you just that basic human right of like respect. You know, you're gonna respect me. I'm not gonna let you disrespect me, and you don't have to be mean about it. You just have to kind of an assertive way be like, yeah, no, you're not going to tell me that.
And I think with over time and just growing up and, you know, with the group of people that you're with too, it's like at one point you're going to outgrow each other because they're not going to be able to talk to you the way they talk to you. And it's, you know, oh, we don't have a lot in common because I can't really bully you anymore because you're not going to let me.
No, bullies, they tend to go away when they don't get the reaction out of you, for the most part, right? Like if you don't feed into their negativity or you don't give them what they're looking for, they kind of just move on to someone else, sadly. But you know, getting yourself out of the situation, like quitting or, you know, I'm not encouraging quitting, but when it comes down to
your mental
health or, you know, it's just destroying your life, like, yeah, absolutely get out of it. Like find yourself in a different situation. Not feeding into them and surrounding yourself with like a positive support group, like whatever it is, whether it's, you know, like you said, like a parent, another friend, because I think those things are going to really help you.
My piece of advice is it's okay to not have friends for a little while.
Yes.
It's okay to separate yourself because when I was going through that drastic change, I realized the people that I had around me weren't good influences. They would do and say things that would hurt me and alter the way that I lived my life that I didn't want to live. Like you said, you know, you believe in God, you're a godly woman, and it's like you want to live that way. So whenever you have that wake-up call to where it's like, I'm not going to deal with this anymore, like, I'm just getting pushed in a wrong direction. And for a while, I didn't have friends. Like, my only friend was my mom.
Yeah, at
like, my mom, my brothers, and it's like, now I do have good friends. Now I am able to choose, you know, a good friend in my life. And once they do one wrong thing, I'm able to say, you know what? Like, I see a red flag from a mile away, which is a good thing. You know, I mean, it sucks that we had to go through bullies and we had to deal with that. But it helps you in the long run know what you want for yourself and for your environment, in my opinion.
Yes. I feel like at that time for me too, I didn't have any friends after like that, and I like that. I like that I was like alone. If
it's
that makes
very
sense.
normal, very normal.
Yeah, no, because it's like a time to heal.
Yeah.
Like you heal from all of the stuff that you went through, and then you can kind of like repair yourself for the next relationship that you're gonna have, whether it's a friend or, you know, because I think that's how you stay healthy, is like taking time to reflect, to kind of pull away, to pray, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is you need to do, set boundaries. Yeah, absolutely set boundaries. Like, and I think that's another thing that is helpful, is setting boundaries and saying like, okay, I have a standard of friendships, and when you're not meeting that standard, like I'll still be nice to you, but I'm not going to invite you into this personal part of my life.
There's a million people
especially
in the world.
There's a million people, more than that. And like, yeah, and I think that, you know, it's like we have the authority or the power to say like, okay, you don't deserve to be a part of my life when you are treating me this way.
Or your family's life.
Yeah.
Because ultimately your best friends or your friends are going to be in your parents' life, your brother's lives, and it's like,
well, it impacts everybody.
Yeah, it impacts everyone, and you don't want them to feel the way you feel. Like, it's just not right. You want to protect everyone. You know, it's in everyone, it's nature. You want to be the nurturing person that you were meant to be.
Yeah. So, the next part of our show is giving advice to someone. So the question is, how do you handle, I guess, a situation where you don't have a way out? Like maybe you're being bullied in the workplace, or you're being bullied in a place where you can't escape, like school. How do you think people should handle that?
I think at a workplace, I would kind of just go in there. I mean, first of all, let your authority know, manager, you know, whoever is on shift, just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to distance myself. I'm not, working around this person for an obvious reason. That doesn't mean you have to, call into work because they're working. Or that doesn't mean you have to, like, not work with them because they're working. But I kind of just distance myself because I have had that instance in my life where at work I didn't feel safe in, like, my mental health. And it's like I knew they were kind of attacking me. But at that point, you kind of just have to know that it's not you, it's them. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're going in there, you're doing your job, you're making your money. And with school, too, like, once you get your degree, if you don't want to be in their life, they're not going to be in your life. I guess for class instances, friends, it's a lot different. But for class and work, it's like it's only for a short time, in my opinion. Whether they don't work there anymore, you don't work there anymore, but it's only a short period in your life to where you're going to have to fight through it. And it's going to build you as a person. And in the end, you're going to be winning because you're not going to let it affect you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that my advice is just stay strong. Stay strong. Don't let it affect you. I know it can get to the point where it does affect you, and don't feel like you're weak if it does, because everyone's human. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. So don't feel down if it does, but just keep talking about.
Yeah, I think that's where the self-care comes in too, because when you're having to endure that, it's important to do something that's going to make you happy or that's going to give you some relief. Like, for example, for me, I think it would be like quiet time in prayer and just kind of like centering myself again to, my relationship with God and kind of finding peace in that. Like, that's something that helps me. But for other people, it could be, like exercising or anything, like journaling, shopping, just something that'll give you a little bit of joy in those moments when you're kind of having to endure that. And another thing you said is that it is them, it's not you.
Yeah.
It is, because as much as we want to kind of like take it in, like if it is us, like we must be doing something wrong, we must be like this kind of person that's just like worthless or whatever. But really, you can turn that around, and that's really describing them. It's like projection. You know what I mean? Like they're treating you a certain way because they're lacking. And that's kind of how I see it. So being able to empathize and be like, okay, they must be going through something in their own mind to be treating people this way, because happy people don't treat people like that. Like when you're happy, you don't hurt others.
Or kill them with kindness too.
But, hurt people, you know? And that's another problem. It's like, what are they going through? What have they gone through that is making them think that it's okay for them to treat people like this? Nat, what do you think? What's your advice?
I feel like at the workplace, I've had a couple of like mean girls, and also like guys too, where it's just like inappropriate for what they're saying, and it's just like no, like no. And it's interesting to see that, because it's my work environment is like young people, and it's just like I'm literally 18, like how are people like this? It's just crazy to see.
And how'd you deal with it? Like, what was your response?
It was multiple girls also with me, so it was a lot better in that in that
you had
way.
support.
Yeah, so we ended up telling one of our managers, and then they told our like higher up people, and then they gave him like a warning, I guess, and then it happened one more time, and then he was completely kicked out, and it felt a lot safer for all of us.
Good.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think, being able to hold people accountable for their actions, like there's things you can do. You can write things down, like keep a calendar. If the behavior is really, really bad, where it's getting to the point where you're being, like physically hurt, or they're just really psychologically, emotionally, like, hurting you, you can jot things down in a calendar and bring it to higher ups, because that's going to help you at the end to kind of prove what's happening. And also utilizing those resources, like what can you do? Can you go to the police? Can you go to the principal? Can you go to the coaches? Can you utilize them as a way to kind of put a stop to it, or at least to minimize it happening? Because I think, bullying has been happening since the beginning of time. Like now it's just magnified with social media and, all that stuff. But I think that it's always existed. So I think one thing that we can do is find a way to at least minimize it as much as we can. But Natalie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about this, because this is a topic that nobody wanted to talk about. Like, I tried to get people to come on the podcast and talk, and they were just like, no, because number one, they're afraid they're going to piss off the bullies. You know, like they don't want to out anybody, which is understandable. But, you know, it was like, man, the mean girls are mean girling if nobody wants to come on and like talk about it. So it was very brave and courageous of you to come and, you know, openly share your experience and all of that stuff.
And healthy for the viewers.
And
listeners.
And I think it's good to kind of show someone like, you know what, it's okay to just, you know, kind of like brush it off and focus on yourself. That's one piece of advice. I remember I was working at this very high stress job for a very long time, and I was having issues with other people there, adults, and I remember my supervisor, he said, just focus on yourself. And at the moment, I kind of felt like he was being dismissive. Like he wasn't really validating what I was going through. But at the same time, I was like, I think that was the best piece of advice he ever gave me, because at the end of the day, like, you're in charge of your own life. So like I kind of like just, what do you call it? I reevaluated and then refocused, and it was like, okay, from now on I'm just going to focus on what I have control over and how I treat other people and how I'm going to kind of handle these situations. So I would say, focus on yourself. But so thank you, Natalie, and we wish you the best in college, and we miss you and we hope that you'll continue to come back and visit with us.
Yes, I will.
Even way after you're like done with college. We like to see you guys grow up, so
yes. We're living through you. I'm living through you.
So thank you for listening. Please like our podcast. Please follow us so that you know when we're going to be posting our next episode. But thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.